Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark,
And I'm Midge Munster.
and some of you may know that I recently welcomed a new man into my life. His name is Tony Boney, and he's a life-size skeleton pillow from Home Goods. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to go back to one of my favorite topics: things people do with bones.
Bones. I was like, it's a bone.
Bones.
It's a bone thing.
It is. So we have already talked on this show about the fabulous catacomb saints, and now it's time to discuss my second favorite decorative use of skeletons: bone churches.
Ooh, okay.
Yes. So I'm guessing if you're a spooky person, you've probably seen images of these trending. Just a chapel that is just chock full of bones, often in decorative form on the walls, maybe just a huge pile of skulls. And you may wonder, where are these? Why did we do this? What's up with it? Let's find out about that.
Is this that Chappell Bone I keep hearing about?
Yes. Yes. Queer sensation Chappell
Where's
Bone.
Chappell Bone? Yeah.
Oh my god, how good of a Halloween costume would that be?
A
Chapel
skeleton
Bone.
version of her. Oh my god.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
I'm actually going back to the drawing board for my costume now.
Right, write that down. All right. So a term that you will often hear to refer to this sort of thing is an ossuary. So today's little spooky vocab lesson. So ossuary is actually a general term for a place where bones from multiple remains are kind of stored in a collective fashion. So this could be as simple as like a box, like a vault or a case. It could be a catacomb. Check out our episode on catacombs to learn more about that.
It could be a weird little lighthouse off the
Yep, it
Tillamook
could be
Head.
a weird lighthouse full of stuff. Um, and it also could be using them for decorative purposes in your place of worship. Um, so, a lot that we talked about in the catacomb episode is also relevant to this one, because as a whole, ossuaries are popular when there is not a lot of room for graves, or when all of the grave space has kind of been full up.
Graved. When the
All
graves
fully
have been
graved.
graved.
Yep, yep. So people are looking for compact ways to keep and commemorate remains. And one that seems pretty odd to us today is using skulls and other bones in elaborate sculptures and displays. You do see examples of this in Catholic churches, and it was also pretty common. I mean, not common, but it was a major part of a lot of Eastern Orthodox churches, is somewhere that you will see this. So if someone says the Bone Church, what they are probably referring to is Sedlitz Ossuary, which is located at the Church of All Saints in Kutna Hora, Czechia. So this is the place with the big bone chandelier. If you have seen that,
Mhm, mhm.
picture that in your mind. So there was a monastery at this site, like as far back as 1142. Crazy. And
Wow.
by the 14th century, when the Church of All Saints was built, the cemetery was very crowded for kind of two reasons. The boring reason is that this was just a really populated area back in the day. It was the only like active Christian burial ground kind of in the vicinity. And in the years leading up to the start of the Bone Chapel, there had been a number of famines and diseases, as well as additional corpses from war in the area. But there is also a fun reason that this was popular, which is that there's a story about a early abbot who traveled to Jerusalem to visit Jesus's grave, and he brought back some holy soil that he scattered in the graveyard. And so
Very
everyone was like, I got to get buried here with this special Jesus dirt.
it's like very vampiric of him, brought like
Right.
soil, homeland soil back. Uh, yeah,
Totally.
I could see wanting to get buried in the Jesus dirt. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, yep, sounds exciting. I'm into it. So by this point in the 14th century, the cemetery covered 8.6 acres, which is pretty
Wow.
big.
Yeah.
Um, and they were like, we don't have any more room to bury people, so we're just going to dig up a bunch of these medieval bones so that we can bury fresh people here. And now we got to do something with these skeletons that we've dug up.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's I
just
that's just
a
wild.
different approach than
Yeah.
than we think of today.
I had a really, like, stupid thought where I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, why didn't they just use the bones of the people that were like, why do you gotta dig up the old bones?" And I was like, "Oh, because the other people are freshly dead.
Yeah.
They're not
Not
they
bones
are
yet.
not bones." Got it.
Yes. So Jan Santini Eichel is credited as the originator of the bone motif, who was kind of involved in the design of this. But his design only used the skulls and some limb bones. And so I was reading like the official like Sedlitz like website where they talk
Mhm.
about like the history, and they describe his. They say his designs quote brought death into the divine order, thus setting aside the burdensome lower chapel atmosphere, expressing the desire that we can hope for resurrection after death. So it was like a much more minimal design from what the descriptions are, and was just kind of so this is in an underground chapel at the church, and so it was kind of like, all right, like this is where we're going to kind of maybe have like a little meditation, think about the afterlife, what's
Our
to
discreet
come.
bone room.
Yes, our casual bone room. Um, but the person who gets credit for the we'll say maximalist use of skulls and bones we see today was named František Rink. So he was a wood carver, and so this was kind of originally done in like the 14th century, like 1300s, and so this guy shows up in 1870, and is brought by the Schwarzenberg family, who are like, "Hey, we want to pay you to jazz things up at this church," and he got jazzy on it,
He
Midge.
did. He
He
did.
did. So he was the one who had all of the bones bleached to a consistent like white color before this. They had just been in their au natural state. Um, and at this point in time, like romanticism is really popular, things that are very like elaborate and glamorous. And so he is the one who created that chandelier that's so famous, as well as the Schwarzenberg family crest on the wall made out of bones, and all of these like kind of draping bone garlands that we see. The official site describes it as a realm of triumphant death, which I think
Wow.
is just baller. I love that.
He went onto Pinterest and, searched moody maximalism.
Pretty much, right? He was like dark academia maximalist
Bone
plus
chandelier,
bone.
yeah.
But yeah, because the reasoning behind this and other displays like it is, of course, one of our favorite things, memento mori. Remember, you must die.
Mm.
So the thought is that looking at these bones and remains will kind of prompt you to ponder mortality and think about how important it is to get your soul right with God before you die. You're sitting in church and you're like, damn, I'm going to be a skull one day, so I should probably take care of my shit right now.
You, also need to get your affairs in order if you want to become a bone chandelier.
Yes.
Remember that you must leave a note saying, "Yes, you can turn me
Right.
into a
Please make
chandelier."
me into a chandelier. Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's just obviously like, you come from a different perspective when you have like this kind of like spiritual belief, because they were talking about how the idea was like, oh, it also makes you think of like, oh, resurrection, we'll all be together again
Mm.
after we die, where I personally feel that like looking at bones makes me very aware of like the limitedness
I would
of
yeah.
life is what
Yeah.
my perspective is. But for the people in these churches at this time, they were like, wow, yeah, it's all going to be great when Jesus comes back and we're all in a big bone chandelier in the sky, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the, the community. community aspect of like
Yeah,
it's very like ashes to ashes, dust to dust,
totally.
right? Of
Yes,
like, oh,
yes.
we all end up in the same place eventually.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I tend to lean more of like, wow, we really have a finite moment until I am a skeleton.
Right. Yeah. So another really cool church that is believed to have inspired this bone chapel is Santa Maria della Concessione Crypts in Rome.
Mm.
This is where 4,000 Capuchin friars are displayed, we'll say.
Oh.
Um, so this was like their monastery, and when they moved, like the Pope's brother, like were like was like, okay, when you guys move into this new monastery, you need to take all of your dead friars with you so you can all be together in one place, basically.
Bring out your fryers.
Yep. So they packed up all of the other dead friars so far, and as they continued to die here, they became part of the bone display. So this ossuary features notable elements like a room of all pelvises, uh,
Wow.
mummified friars hanging off of walls in their robes, and a
Oh.
skeleton on the ceiling holding a set of scales and a scythe, which are also made out of bones.
Okay, that's slay.
It's pretty sick. It is pretty sick.
That's cool. I don't think I'm team mummified friars in robes, but I'm certainly team scythe and scales skeleton.
Yeah, it's pretty boss. It's like on yeah, so it's like in like almost like a cameo on the ceiling, like it's within like a little like oval frame design. It's pretty
What?
sick. It is pretty
Okay,
sick.
I'm gonna Goog it.
Yes. Yeah, so the Atlas Obscura entry on this one mentions that these crypts got a shout out. Mark Twain writes about this in The Age of Innocence. And another famous guest wrote, I have never seen anything more striking. Who was that, you may ask?
I am asking that. How did you know?
Why, it was the Marquis de Sade, who Satan is
Oh.
named after. He was like, this is sick. So, right on, my man. I'm not at all surprised that you were into this. The largest ossuary in Europe is the Paris catacombs, which we already talked about in the catacomb episode. But the second largest actually was not discovered until 2001,
Oh
which
wow.
is pretty crazy. This is also in Czechia, in a town called Brno, I'm gonna say. It only has the one vowel, so I'm not totally
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so this town is so crazy old. It was officially
How
settled
old is it?
so old. It was officially settled in 1243, but it is known to have been occupied since the 400s.
Oh dang.
A bonkers. So because it's so old, anytime they're gonna like build or renovate, they do a little like archaeological poke around just to be like, all right, like, is there
What's going
anything
on
going
here?
on?
Yeah.
Anything going on here that we should see? And sometimes you look under the town square and find 50,000 skeletons,
I hate when that happens. When I'm
right?
just when I'm just poking around and all of a sudden I'm like, "What are these doing here?"
Right, when you're like, "Ooh, maybe I'll do, like, a little bit of reno," and then you pull up the carpet and you're like, 50,000 skeletons,
Yeah, happened in my old house. It was so
right?
annoying.
It
Yeah.
it happens more often than you think. Um, so they do believe that these were all arranged in, like, nice rows, at one point, since at whenever that happened, it had flooded and everything was kinda jumbled up.
Mm.
So it doesn't really fit in with this bone church theme, but I couldn't find out about 50,000 skeletons and
And
not
not
tell you
tell
about
you.
it, Mitch. So,
Yeah, that's fair. That's a lot of skeletons. Did you say it was
yeah.
under the just under the town square?
Yeah, so, like, at some point, they in probably medieval times, they had, like, built a little crypt ossuary catacomb situation under there, and people just forgot that it was there, I guess,
Wow. All right.
until 2001. What a way to start a new millennium.
That was what Y2K was about.
Yeah,
It was
they were
about
like,
finding
"There's just gonna
50,000
be
skeletons.
50,000 skeletons wherever you look. You
Yeah.
gotta watch out. You gotta be aware of these things." But yes, there are so many ossuaries to explore. I just wanted to pick a few of like my personal favorite ones to talk about.
What a
I
sentence
know,
metaphor.
yes. If people want to see them or know more about them, I know Ask a Mortician has several videos visiting ossuaries, so definitely recommend checking those out. A lot of these do not permit video or photography inside, although there's, of course, plenty floating around the internet.
Right.
um, and as is kind of a theme in a lot of these places have also struggled a lot with their popularity as tourist attractions.
Mhm.
So, just not that our listeners need it, but just a reminder to always be a respectful visitor, especially places like this, like the Bone Chapel that's underneath the church. Like it is underneath a functioning church still.
Right.
Like they are still holding services and stuff there, and there's a lot of kind of dramatic tourism to the area. And of course, people are always going to be crappy and like are touching things and wearing skulls down. Do not touch. Do not touch any skulls.
Yeah, like, you are still visiting a place, where people are buried. Like, at the end of it, like,
Yes.
these are deceased people. So,
Yep.
yes, always be respectful of the dead.
Yeah, because I think it is like this isn't something that we would do today or kind of fits into our modern understanding of like your body rights.
Sure.
Um, but it was considered like acceptable at the time, and it was not seen as like a disrespectful way to treat human remains. So just
Honestly, it's
maintain
way
that
cooler
respect.
than what we're doing with human remains now. I did Google that,
Oh
that
yeah.
scythe and scale. That is I didn't I mean, and you said it. Um, I didn't understand that, like, the cameo around it is made of, like,
Oh,
vertebrae and
yeah.
things.
It's sick. That I'll probably like,
Yeah.
I'll definitely put that one on the Instagram
Yeah,
if
that
folks
is,
wanna
like,
see that.
truly stunning, like, work of art, beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I so this it feel I feel a little bit hypocritical saying it because I talked about it on this podcast, but it makes me feel bad that like a lot of these places are just described, even in fairly official things, as being like, oh, the creepy bone church, the blah blah
Mm,
blah. Because I'm like, they weren't trying to be creepy or weird, and I think that we can be like, oh, this is like definitely out of the norm, and obviously it's bones. It's gonna feel spooky to us
right, because, yeah,
today,
literally
but
because of the, like I mean, what you were talking about, it is a reminder that you're gonna die, and it is
yes,
a reminder that, like, "Oh, that's inside my meat sack." Which is just naturally, I think, a little jarring as a human person.
totally. I don't think I didn't put it in my notes, but there's a similar like there's a quote inscribed at the one in Rome that I mentioned that was like,
Mhm.
what we are now you will be, and what you are now we once were. And so just
Mm.
kind of that sense of like every bone you see was once a living person, and you as a living person will one day be bones, and it's just a thing to contemplate. I think that coming from like a death positive modern perspective, I also think it's really cool in that way, just to kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
contemplate and see, think about mortality, and whatever you think may come after that or not is up to you, but it is definitely a reminder of where we are and what we are going towards.
So, Penny, I gotta give you a would you rather now.
Ooh, yeah.
Now that we've talked about a few things here, would you rather be a bedazzled catacomb saint skeleton, or would you rather have your bones displayed in a chandelier?
Oh, I gotta be a catacomb saint. Midge, I need to be the star of the
You need to be the
show. I do not
sparkliest.
want to, I don't want to just be like one femur in a chandelier. Like, I want to be the main attraction. I want to be the fanciest skeleton in the church.
That's totally fair. I
What
think it
about you?
also it would depend for me on, like I don't know why my brain went to, like, when, like, people buy a house with all their, like, friends to retire in, and they're
Mhm.
like, "We did a Golden Girls situation." I'm like, if there was like that, but you could sign up for an ossuary with all your friends, like, if my
Yeah.
bones were with bones of people I liked,
Oh,
then
yeah.
like, chandelier me, baby.
True. Yeah.
Um,
If it was like a if it was a chandelier and it was like you and me and a few of our spooky friends,
right, right.
I could be down with that. Also, I will say, like, if I could have like a sweet role, like if I could be the skeleton holding the scythe,
Right, right, right.
I would be into that. Um,
Okay. What if you get to be the skeleton holding the scythe and we put rhinestones on you?
oh, okay, then that's the best of both
Cut,
worlds.
print,
That
check
is
the gate.
definitely
All
what
right.
I'm going for.
I'm taking notes for you.
Thank you. Yes, as we have said before, everything stated on this show is an official part of our death plan.
Yes,
So,
exactly. I don't know how we're going to have the tombstones and epitaphs we spoke of in like episode 6 and also be on display in a European church somewhere, but we're gonna
ooh,
figure it out.
maybe we can get like a plaque with our epitaphs
Yeah.
in the
Well, we
church
gotta
by
have
our.
somewhere, in the States for people to
Oh,
visit
right.
us.
Yeah.
So,
Like
yeah, that's fine.
my first thought was like, oh yeah, like how if you get married like far away, you have like a party for all your local friends. Obviously, we got to have local graves. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
oh man.
Eh,
Yes. All
uh,
right. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a short one, but I was just thinking about cool bones, and I
well,
wanted
sometimes
to
it'd be
tell you
like that.
guys about some really neat bone stuff.
Surprisingly, that had not come to my attention, so I learned
Oh,
something today. It was
really? Oh,
exciting, yeah.
excellent. Yeah, I feel like I just like every couple of years, like the pictures from Sedlitz, like the chandelier especially, will like circulate the
Mm.
internet, and people will be like, "What? What's this crazy thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it is pretty shocking on first look, and it is a topic worth exploring further. I would definitely love to visit one of these sites
Yeah.
someday."
The first time I had heard the word ossuary was last year when I went to Salem, because they oh, what's the shop that it's
Oh
like
yeah,
a part
die with
of?
your boots on.
Die with Your Boots On has a, like, sub shop that's, like, fancier,
Yes.
called the Ossuary, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And I looked it up.
Mhm.
But that was my first exposure.
Oh, well, welcome to ossuary life, Midge.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening with us. If you have visited any of these ossuaries or bone churches, I would love to see or hear about it. So please do feel free to let us know. And if you enjoyed the show, we would so appreciate if you would leave a positive review for us. You can leave those on Apple Podcasts, or you can send them to us if you are not able to leave them where you listen. And I do believe Mitch has a review today.
I do. This is an Instagram submitted review from Alicia Donovan that says, "Another review to thank you. This podcast is the perfect spooky escape you have been looking for. With each week, Penny and Midge take you along on another spooky adventure full of laughter and occasional throwbacks to those crazy old Victorians. I started listening to the podcast 2 years ago when I spent time. Oh nope, when I spent the summer as a dietetic intern. Ooh. Who was studying to be a dietitian. That was the summer I was housed in a beautiful, creaky old house.
Ah,
Hell yeah. To help fill the silence of the empty house, I would freely play Ghouls Night In podcast. The summer wrapped up, and although it was goodbye to the house, I still enjoy listening to Penny and Midge, which brings me back to that time baking cinnamon rolls, exploring the eerie cold basement, discovering new rooms, watching horror movies on stormy nights, and eating poutine with a little
ah,
Canadian flag emoji at the end.
delicious. That
Um,
sounds like an
as a
amazing summer.
Yeah, I was like, as a general question, where do I sign up for that camp experience?
Right?
Just stay in a creepy old house for the summer watching horror movies and baking cinnamon rolls. Where do they offer that?
I know. I would be so down. All right. So if you guys want to follow along with us, you can find the podcast on Instagram at Ghouls Night In Pod. That is where I will be sharing some photos of fabulous bones. And if you are looking for me and my fabulous new boyfriend, Tony Boney, you can find us at Penny Snark.
You can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.